So I'm just here to introduce our next panel, which is Behind Every Strong Woman is Another Strong Woman, and why Roku chose to present this panel to you all is because we have a very, very special group at Roku called Women at Roku. And that group was designed to create an inclusive environment for women in our industry that cultivates thought leadership, inclusion, and growth by sharing our knowledge, connecting women together, and helping them empower their day-to-day. So really excited for you all to hear this next panel, and I'll see you later this afternoon.
Please welcome to the stage, Michele Sileo, Managing Director of 11, Bonnie Wan, Partner and Head of Brand Strategy for Goodby, Silverstein and Partners, and Mary Johnstone, Associate Partner and Chief Operating Officer of Venables, Bell and Partners.
Is this, got this whole couch to myself.
Come closer. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see everyone. Hello, Atlanta.
Hello.
I wanted to thank you for indulging us today in a bit of a walk down memory lane. We are going to share stories from our past and our present around mentorship in hopes of demystifying the concept of mentorship. For those of you that don't know, probably many of you, Bonnie, Mary, and I worked together over 25 years ago at an agency in San Francisco called Hal Riney and Partners. We were young in our career at a time that there weren't many women to look up to in senior level role models. We relied on one another for allyship and support and partnership. And we were pioneering our own paths and gaining strength from one another, truly gaining strength from you two ladies. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists and jump right in, and hopefully we'll look back to enable all of us to propel forward. Mary Johnstone is a newly appointed COO at Venables, Bell and Partners. Mary had a storied career, long career in HR and talent, which is when we worked together. Mary is a breadwinner of a family of 4, husband who stays at home with the children, and 2 young adults. Mary has a son that she was experiencing a traumatic birth in about 20 years ago, and he was born on 9/11 with cerebral palsy. Ever since that time, Mary has spent her entire career balancing and fiercely committed to life, work, and family, and having it all balance in a way that meant that she could be there for Lance. Bonnie Wan. Bonnie is a partner and head of strategy at Goodby, Silverstein and Partners. Bonnie is one of 4 female partners running the agency. I'm going to pull up my notes for this. Bonnie is the creator and soon-to-be published author of a new book called The Life Brief: Creative Strategies for No Regrets Living. Bonnie is no stranger to the 3% stage. And Bonnie is also the breadwinner of her family and has 4 children from ages 6 to 18, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so with that, we're going to jump right in. Our first question, ladies, will you share one game-changing moment from early in your careers that demonstrates the power of mentorship?
Well, you know, it's funny because my game-changing moment was I was being mentored and I had no idea that I was. It was early on in my time at Riney. It was at its heyday. The majority of the leadership was very much male. But I was lucky enough to report to two very senior females, the CFO and the COO. And my background had always been HR, but they brought me in and they're like, why don't you file these financial tax reports? And why don't you learn to be an expert in Excel? And here's how we run operations. And I never questioned doing all this that was outside of my typical job. I was just so thankful that they took the time to bring me in the fold, to teach me. And it's interesting, as I went on to other agencies, I'll be in meetings sometimes and they're like, is your background finance or HR? Because they taught me that much. So and it basically, I feel like, moved me to the path that I'm in now. So a good takeaway there is, if right now I think a lot of times people get tied up into their job description and it's like, well, this isn't really what I'm supposed to do, but if you're being taught and brought in on things that are new and different and outside of your realm, soak it in, take it all in, be thankful that you're getting that exposure. It just may lead you to a path that you didn't expect.
Beautiful. I think I was really lucky. Early on, mentorship got defined for me in a way that was not, I think, the typical teach, coach, meet one-on-one, every other week. But I really saw the power of mentorship as advocacy. I was really junior in my career. I was coming up. It was a daunting experience. I was at a big agency, Chiat Day in LA, during its heyday. And I reported into two women, amazingly smart, whip smart, really senior women, and on the path. And I remember getting my first performance review, terrifying regardless. And one of my managers, directors, kind of just, it was a shock to me, but went for the jugular. I couldn't manage time. It was the first thing out of gates. I couldn't manage time. I couldn't juggle multiple projects. It was everything that I couldn't do. And I was horrified. And so young, and I thought that I had been working so hard, but then the other managers stepped in and fiercely just pointed out everything that I had done right. And not only did she do that, but she took full accountability as a manager for the things that I had not yet learned, which was time management, juggling multiple projects, because I was only 2 years into my career. And that was a crossroads. It was very early, and my performance could have gone one way or another. And it was because of her. And she became a longtime mentor. Thank you, Lorraine Ketch, if you are out there. And it really informs how I look at my role with, the people I get the privilege to serve.
Amazing, amazing. Might be a nice moment to honor the women that we looked up to,
Yes.
Our pioneers that stood out to us and stood up for us. Amazing story. During those years, there was one path at that time.
It was a very narrow
A very narrow path for women to follow, and they did it gracefully and naturally. We're lucky today that we have a wider path, if you will, and that path has been widened because of multiple women over the years finding new ways to navigate our industry. I know you have a story, Bonnie, about that, so would you mind sharing a moment where you were able to widen your path?
Yeah, I think what I've learned is that when you are underrepresented, you are the pioneer. I think that's what you're saying. It means your path is going to be paved with firsts.
Yes.
And as I was coming up in the industry, I saw brilliant women, none at the very top of the agency game, zero. I racked my brain last night to think which one was in the leadership group. And I couldn't think of any. But those that were closest, I realized were not parents. And I don't know if that was by choice or if it was the trade-off that you had to make on that very narrow path. And so a decade ago, I had 3 kids. I have 4 now, but I had 3 kids under 5. And I had no one to point to for what do you do? And I was riding the jagged edge of my marriage, of parenting. My career was accelerating, but the cost in front of me, the math just did not compute. And something was going to give. So my husband and I wrote a creative brief for our life, and it pointed somewhere else. And it pointed out of San Francisco, because we couldn't juggle 2 careers and be the parents we wanted to be. It pointed actually to Portland, Oregon, which was thousands of miles away from our agency headquarters in San Francisco. So I made the, I guess it's courageous now. For me, it was the only choice then. And I went to the agency president and I said, I need to move. I need to put my family first. I love this agency. I love my career. I love everything about it. And to my shock and surprise, they were willing to experiment. And it became a 6-year experimentation. And my fear going into that first conversation was, okay, this is it. I've chosen to be a parent. This is where the buck stops. I'm getting off the bus, and I've had a great career. I'm going to revel in what I've achieved. Little did I know there was a possibility forward from there, and Goodby, Silverstein and Partners showed up and said, go for it. I moved to Portland. This was 10 years before remote work was even possible, and I worked a 4-day week so I could balance all that, and that was a first, and that paved the path for me for sure, but it also busted open some gates for everyone else that became a parent at the agency.
And heard your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and saw you in action.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a similar story. You will remember it was 15 years ago, and I had a career at 11. I was managing the largest account there. It was Apple at the time. And my husband, who was staying home with our children, had an opportunity to go back to work. So we were at a moment of deciding how to manage a commitment that we had made to one another as a family, that we would always be home for our children. And after much consideration, lots of conversations, debates about whether or not I could do what my harebrained idea was and actually have the conversation with the management of 11, I decided to ask if I could have a flexible schedule, a very flexible schedule, where I left the office every day at 2 o'clock. Not 4 o'clock, but 2 o'clock, which was pretty much when everybody was just getting back from lunch. I was leaving. Bye-bye, everyone. And I picked up my kids at school, I got them home, and I plugged right back in and started working from home. 11 was immediately gracious. The moment I asked, they said yes. And I made it work, and we made it work together. And for me, I think I had hit a fork in my road that I had to be authentic to me and my family and what felt right for me. And what felt right for me was working the extra, hours a day to make it all work. Mm-hmm. And 15 years ago, people were not even contemplating a flexible schedule like that. So it really was a moment, like Bonnie, to open the doors and open people's minds about what was possible.
It's funny, I remember so vividly hearing that, and it was almost like breaking news, like someone can have a flexible schedule in this business, and this industry is just so small, and sometimes that's annoying, but the great part of it being small is that there's such a domino effect when something happens. I remember Michele and Bonnie and I were all at different agencies. I heard about Michele's situation. I heard about Bonnie's situation. I talked to the HR people at, Goodby and 11. And it just really drives you to go back to your own world, your own agency, your own environment, and do a check. Like, are we actually doing things like this? Maybe we should be proactive about it. They were brave enough to move forward and really put everything on the line to stand for what they needed to for their lives, but they didn't want to give up their careers. And I think it's interesting, and I know you probably don't reflect on it this way, but your bravery literally was a catalyst for change, and I think that that's important, that we continue to have those uncomfortable moments because that change will happen.
Yeah, in the moment, I don't know if I was thinking about bravery.
No, I think they're terrified.
Right.
Terrified.
At the time. But you're right. I think that the ripple effects. I think there are ripple effects. So if there's something you are feeling that's gripping you or calling to you, and it's right for your situation, know that advocating for yourself to make that happen can clear the path for other people, because I guarantee there are other people hoping for that kind of creativity and permission.
Yeah. Yeah. Another topic that I want to touch on before too long is seeing yourself in your mentor and the importance of being able to just see yourself in your mentor. Can you speak to that, Bonnie, a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I know the title of this talk is Behind Every Strong Woman is Another Strong Woman, and that's certainly the case for us, but anyone can be an advocate. Men, women, it doesn't matter what your background is. If you have power, use it to unlock opportunities for people who are different than you. But then when it comes to navigating, I think, the trickier waters of bias, exclusion, discrimination,
Aggression.
everything, microaggression, the oxygen that we live in, and when we're trying to forge a new path forward, it's hard to break it if you can't see it. It's human nature to have blind spots. And it's not about terrible people, it's not about wrongdoings, but it's hard to see from a place that you don't understand, that you haven't felt or navigated yourself. And so I think it's really important to have in your scaffolding, of advisors, mentors, and advocates, people who really know at the granular level what you're experiencing, and that can help you navigate it either through modeling or through advice. For me, the big cost of not seeing any other BIPOC or Asian, much less women. Ahead of me was that I feel that I really sacrificed my culture and my identity, and I worked hard to assimilate to, again, that narrow path, to fit in that narrow path to get to where I was. And it really, again, influences who I am as a leader today. I know when I look at a performance review, and it's talking about an Asian employee in it, and it says they need to, get more hungry, have some more moxie, be loud and proud in the room, own the room. No, there are many ways to earn authority, have presence, gain credibility, and quiet confidence is a powerful effect. And so guiding those employees and celebrating who they are, but finding their own voice in the room. And if you have to go outside your company because there isn't a BIPOC leader there to advocate, mentor, advise, I have reached outside of our agency to find them for some of our Black employees. So I think we all have an opportunity to get creative about how mentorship happens.
Amazing. I think it's great advice. To your opening segment, you can find mentorship with anyone.
Yes.
But I think the key to your message is that it is very important for individuals to find people that have shared experiences.
As well. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. We're running out of time. We have a few more questions. We'll make them quick. Mary, bust one myth about mentoring.
Mentorship is about the work person only. It's about showing them the work path and what they need to know in their job. It should 100% be about the whole being. And we've really done a focus on that at Venables, and to understand what people are going through personally. And just remembering that the personal journey is just as important as the professional journey. And it will, not only kind of build your relationship with whoever you're mentoring, but it will propel them to be able to focus on work more as well, because they're having that support with their outside lives.
So important. I run a small mentoring group at 11, and that's one of the first things I talk about, that mentoring is not just about your work life, it's about your whole life. They're all tied together. Yeah. Bonnie, what about you? Bust one myth.
I think it's more of an excuse than a myth, which is that mentorship has to take a lot of time. And none of us have it because we're in these crazy, always on kind of careers. But I would say to any mentees out there, if you have someone in mind who you would love as a mentor, make it irresistibly easy for them to say yes. Micro doses of mentoring are so effective. 15 minutes. Can I grab 15 minutes of your time? Mentorship happens in every direction these days. It's not just a one-way experience or conversation. It actually, there's a beautiful exchange. Offer up what you have to give. So it's a rich experience for, everyone involved. Just don't hold it and not act.
Amazing. One more question. Words that you live by. Share some words that you live by.
Well, as it relates, there's a lot of phrases I live by, but as it relates to mentorship, I think it's all around you is the easiest way to look at it. Not only, again, in your professional life, but in your personal life. It's everywhere. It doesn't have to be a formal program. Look to someone who inspires you, reach out to them, have that conversation, or the reverse. Look around you and see who's in the room that you could be, a mentor to. And when you open your eyes up to it, it's amazing, how the world opens a little bit.
So true. What about you, Bonnie?
Okay, my words for mentorship are not mine. I'm going to credit my partner and Chief Creative Officer at Goodby Silverstein Partners, Margaret Johnson. They are absolutely words she lives by, and we all do now, which is lift as you rise. Create first, lift people up. Margaret busted the glass ceiling at our agency, and shortly thereafter we had 4 female partners, equal to the men, and that's what happens when you break doors, break ceilings. You get to bring people along, and sometimes you get really narrow focused, about what's my fight, what's my next barrier, but remember there are so many more people waiting at the door. Open it for them.
Perfect segue. We're running out of time. We have 11 seconds left on our monitor, but we wanted to do a little call to action with the audience at this moment and ask everyone to spend 15 seconds, 20 seconds thinking about an individual in your life that you would be willing to mentor, or someone that you would like to mentor yourself. The ask right now is pick up your phones and text that individual. So if everyone can take 10, 15 seconds to think about an individual and place that text, we'll end our chat in that way.
Done.
Check.
Check. I see a lot of people still working. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for indulging us. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you, Bonnie.